bonjour everyone. Welcome to House of Chi Yoga. We're gonna do some hip work today. I'm gonna give you, let's see, one, two, three, four, about 4 hip stretches that I personally love oh so much. And these are great stretches to implement into your life on a consistent, even daily basis. They will help your low back, your hips. We get so tight every single day. Even doing nothing can make our hips and our back tight. So this is not going to bring any mobility work, but just some deep stretching. I do obviously recommend also doing mobility and strengthening, not just deep stretching, because that will just loosen things up and not build any support, right? But these are stretches that I try to add in here and there after I go for a run, after like I just did a hard yoga class, so I'm going to go into some deep stretching. After I do something active, like I'll do a jiu-jitsu class, I try to hit at least a few deep hip stretches to keep everything nice and stretchy and not fluid is not the right word, but moist is also not the right word, but the word is not coming to me. Supple. I want to keep it all supple and healthy. Okay, I have a timer here that is 3 minutes. So we're just going to hold each of these poses for 3 minutes. I usually hold them for up to 5 minutes. You can hold them for as long as you like. Real quick backstory. Actually, I'm not even going to get into that. Never mind. I'll share that another time. We don't have time for that BS right now. Okay, let's get to it. So I have 2 blocks here and 2 pillows just for my comfort. We do need a block for one of the stretches. If you don't have a block, you can just hold a different version of bridge. But if you do have a block, it's going to be really beneficial for that bridge pose. And everything else is just for comfort and fun. So the first one we're going to do is butterfly. Butterfly is heels, toes together, and knees out wide. Now, if you are super stiff, you can put your back against the wall, and that'll help you kind of stay nice and tall instead of super rounded here. We don't want to be super rounded. In this case, I'm just stretching these back muscles, but I want to lift up nice and tall and lean forward to stretch these muscles and the groin muscles. Now, a little thing about this groin stretch, if the heels are close to the body, you're going to hit these deeper, smaller groin muscles. If they're farther away, you're going to hit a little bit longer of a muscle. I think that's right. It could be reverse. I think that's correct. Shorter muscles, longer muscles. So just find something that feels good for you. And I'm just going to go ahead and use these for comfort on my belly. I'll let you know when I start the timer. Let's go ahead and get set. And you're trying to lean forward into a fold. I like to support my head so I don't have to do any work while I'm holding. So I'm going to place my forehead on the block. Just kidding. I'm more flexible than that. I might place it down here. I'm going to give myself another pillow. All right, now I'm comfy. We've started our timer. Hopefully you have some music or something at home. I don't need to talk my way through these 3 minutes, so we're just going to hold and relax together. See you on the other side. You're already about halfway through your 3-minute hold. So if there's any adjustments you can make to take the stretch a little deeper, maybe you can get rid of a pillow or a block. See if you can go a little farther with the stretch. Taking some deep breaths to release the last pieces here. Getting rid of any tension in the hips, any tension in the low back. One more breath. Using the hands as support as you roll it up. Especially if you're not used to holding stretches, being really careful as it's called rebound, as we come back and adjust the body. Adding any kind of movement that feels good here. And then you're just going to take the legs out and hold for a moment just to let the muscles go back into place. You could do a little self-massage here if that feels good. And after that first one, you'll know if the 3 minutes is long enough. Next time you can go longer, or if that was pretty painful, maybe through the rest of this class, you build up to the 3 minutes. You just hold about half the time. I'll try to let you know when it's about halfway through each time, because we don't want to just go straight into deep stretching. Just like anything, we got to make our way there. Okay, moving on to a reclined position this time. And I'm going to move these out of the way. I'm going to use my pillow for my head for comfort. And I'm going to do a reclined 90 degree. So I'm on my back. My legs are going wide. I'm going to take my right knee down first into a 90 degree, which means my hip, femur, knee are all in one line, and my foot is out to the side. If you feel pressure on your knee, you can probably bring the knee closer. Nope, that's a deeper stretch. Oh, that feels great. So if you feel pressure on the knee, you can put something underneath here for support. Like I have these 2 blocks. That can help relieve the pressure. Or you can just take it farther across the body, and that's going to release also some pressure on the low spine here. But for me, I'm going to go 90. Keep my heel out, keep my foot a little bit active, feel a nice stretch across here, and then some deep stretching across the back. The other leg is also in a 90, but it's not getting too much stretch. The higher you bring that knee up, the deeper this stretch will be as well. So I'm going to start our timer. It's only 3 minutes here. This is a very relaxing posture. We're using gravity to open up this top hip, to release the back. So just breathe into it, relax into it. Use the exhales to continually soften, get rid of any tension. It should feel like a nice twist on the back as well. And this is a deep stretch, so I'll let you know when it's halfway. If you feel like, okay, that's enough on my hip, go ahead and back up out of it and just lay on your back. Another thing I like adding to this posture is a really good way to access that inner hip area. So your bone, your hip bone should be pretty obvious from here. It's easier to find because it's kind of pointing up. So you can find the hip bone and just peel the muscles right off the bone with the fingers. Ooh, as I'm doing this, I can feel my knee. So it's definitely some tight muscles going on, because if you're manipulating at one point and you feel it in another, that means it's pretty tight. Definitely over halfway if you're feeling like you need to come out of this one. A few more breaths here. Releasing, letting go of any tension. Start moving out of this posture. Let's bring the left leg in close first, and then take your hands to the right leg and help it lift up to a neutral position. Now from there, walk the feet back in line with the hips. Take the right leg up in the air and shake it out. Let it kind of shimmy back into place. You can actually manipulate the femur here too. Just take the hands and move it around. Any movement. Oftentimes it feels good just to move in the opposite direction of the stretch you just did. And then go ahead and just sit for a moment and be still. And then we'll move on to the other leg. So I'm just going to stay in my same position. I'll start the timer already. If you need to grab blocks or whatever, a blanket, pillow to place under your knee, go ahead and do that. But otherwise, you're going for your 90 and a 90. Remember this top leg, as you bring it up higher, you'll get an even deeper stretch across the hip area. And try to relax. Sometimes, depending on how tight the hip is, it's hard to relax in these positions, but that's where our breath comes in. We want to use our exhales to continue to soften, to release tension, and to stay calm. Allowing the heart rate to come down, the breath to get deeper. If you were working with the hip before with the hands, let's go same thing on this side. Let's peel the muscles right off the hip bone. Taking a few more breaths. Unfortunately, my timer, the sand didn't start falling, so I'll be estimating on this side. Let's take 3 more deep, slow breaths here. And then gently bringing the top leg, the right leg, bottom leg close to the body. Use the hands to lift the left leg. Ooh, that was tight. Adjust it back to center. Any movement, lift the leg, shake it out. Use the hands to manipulate the femur. And then allow the body to just be still for a moment. Moving into our next posture. This is the one where if you have a block, you can go ahead and use it. I'm going to turn a little bit more to the side so you can see. So you can do supported bridge with the block underneath the sacrum here. Now this is going to be a nice low back release, and obviously our hips and our low back is connected, so this will still help your hips. This feels great. But another thing that is really useful is bringing the block above the sacrum and allowing the hips to fall. Now if you see the difference from this, my hips are here, and this, my hips are sinking. It's allowing the pelvis to shift. It's opening up this front belly space, the psoas muscles, and I'm working with that low back curve, which we tend to lose over time. So this is a kind of adjusting my pelvis back into place. This is a very intense stretch. So if you're gonna hold this one, I'm actually gonna flip my timer already. Make sure the sand is going through. If you're gonna hold this version with the hips pulling down, start really small. Start for about a minute, and then gradually work your way up if everything feels good. This is not a very common position for us to hold unless you know about it and you're practicing it on your own. So again, if this is your first time trying this position, maybe hold it for a minute, see how you feel a little bit afterward, and then if you're fine, you can hold it longer the next time. So we're using gravity here. This is a hard one to release in. I'm trying to let the hips fall. I'm trying to let gravity do the work, but also I have to make sure I'm not just pulling into my low back. So my feet are planted. I'm a little bit supporting with the feet, making sure that there's not too much weight that just is falling down. So find something that's working for you. I like to just gently, ever so slightly move around a little bit here. Adding a little bit of movement in these deeper, more uncomfortable stretches can really help us stay there for longer. Deep breaths to fill up the front belly space. That's probably about a minute. So if you've done this for the first time, go ahead and back up out of it. Use your hands to lift your hips up to remove the block. And for the rest of the time, you can just put the block at the sacrum and hold your supported bridge there. Just have a few more deep breaths. Check in with your body. If you need to come out of the posture, please do so. One more breath here. As you come out of this posture, again, use your hands. It's important not to just go right back into using these low back muscles. So now I'm in a bridge position. I'm going to pull my block down, rest in bridge for a moment. And then when I feel ready, pushing into the feet, engaging the glutes to lift. As I go down, it's very slow, very intentional. you have a very tight low back, you may take a lot longer to get back down to the floor. You can add some rolling here through the spine. You can gently bring the knees into the chest. And then find a moment of stillness to release the back. We have one more pose to do today. This is my absolute favorite pose for the hips, and it's another intense one. So I don't need blocks. Well, you might need blocks for this one. Blocks and pillows. If you have a blanket, you may want to grab a blanket for this one. I'm going to show you the setup. Let's see, it's been a minute since I've gone into this posture. So this is for the IT band. The IT band is very thick, sometimes hard to stretch and to access, so a lot of self-massage is really good for this area, but it's also lifting up and connecting into the internal rotators in the hip. So we're getting a nice deep stretch all along the outside of the hip here. So I'm going to make my way over to the right side of my mat, and I'm actually just going to use one pillow here. I'm on the right side. I'm creating a banana shape with my body. So my left leg is going across and my right leg is going on top. So I hope you can see from this angle, I'm moving over and then over and on top. Now I have this curve. My upper body is going to follow along. So I'm just creating this nice C curve or banana shape. Now, a few of you might look like this with the hip up. Not necessarily wrong, but it's not really going to give us this deep stretch on the lateral hip. So what we're looking for is bringing the hip back down so the stretch takes place all along here. If you're very tight, you're not going to be able to get this hip down right away. So this is where a pillow or a block comes in handy. The blocks are a little bit stiff, but a pillow or a blanket you can support here. Same with the shoulders. If the low body is super tight, just keep the chest neutral. You don't have to turn it over. If you want to start working, you can also place a block behind the shoulder girdle here to just make sure that you're supported and able to relax and you're not having to hold the body on the side. So I hope all that made sense. I'm going to go ahead and start the timer. A 3-minute hold, similar to the last one, is a long hold for this stretch. So get adjusted, feel the stretch, try to feel it in the outer hip here. There might be some pulling happening, so check in with your body. If you need to back out of it, please do so. Remember, you don't have to add the upper body. Remember, this hip is working. We're letting the gravity pull it down, but maybe you have to start with it up a little bit, and then eventually it's going to start working towards the mat space. I love this one. As this hip releases, I usually feel some little adjustments. My femur starts moving out of the hip socket. So it's like everything is so tight and pulling up. And then as I hold, my femur starts getting released from the tight muscles there. It feels so great. I do usually hold this one for 5 minutes, but I will tell you, the first time I held this one for 5 minutes, I was not in pain, but I definitely felt it very deeply. It felt great, but afterward I was like, oh man, maybe I should have started with 3 minutes. So please take it at your own pace because it's a deep one. This is another one of those on the low back as well. You're creating lots of stretch in the low back space. Intentional breathing. We're using the exhales to continually soften and release the muscles. Oh, I'm feeling some little adjustments happen in my body. We're about halfway through. Last few breaths to release, to let go. One more inhale. And exhale. Now, as we move out of this posture, move slowly. Bring the upper body in line first, if it's in a curve. Bring the right leg, the top leg, into a bend. Bring it into the torso. Now you can bring the bottom knee in and adjust the spine back to neutral. You'll probably be feeling it. So let it move around naturally wherever it wants to go. I'm feeling like I need a lift here. And real quickly, take the block, or if you don't have a block, you can take your fist and place it on the side of the spine and above the hip. So here's my spine, the block or your fist goes on the side of it, so you can massage through the QL. Now, if you have the block, I just place an arm on the block so it stays still, and I roll around to get that massage on my low back area. And then releasing, removing the block or your fist, and just being still. And then we'll move on to the other side for our last hip stretch here. So I'm going to transition to the other side of my mat. Any adjustments that need to take place. So my foot goes to the opposite side, my left foot goes on top. So my hip is high. I'm going to use the breath, try to adjust the hip back down. Feel free to add or not add the upper twist. I'm going to switch the timer on. Whoa, no wobbling. If you need your supports, you can place them all behind the shoulder, under the hip, wherever it feels good. I just want you to relax into this stretch. So it's hard to relax when we're having to hold the shoulder up. Try to relax, find some support. We're probably about a minute in. If you need to back out of this posture, if you did a minute on the other side, make sure you're only doing a minute on this side as well. And check in with the body. See if this hip feels different than the other hip. Surprisingly, this hip is looser than my other hip, which I don't feel like is always the case for me. But just check in, see if you feel the stretch in a different area. Taking a few more breaths. We're getting close to the end of our stretch here. One more inhale. Remember to move out of this posture very slowly. Bring the chest, the upper body into alignment. Use your hands if you need to. Bring the top knee close to the body. Then you can adjust the bottom legs. Whew, any kind of movement. Taking the block, let's place it under the QL on the left side. So I just lift up. I place the block above the hip bone to the side of the spine. So I'm getting this nice meaty area. You can always just use the fist, use the knuckles. And then coming back through center and let the body be still. When you're ready, rolling over to one side, let's bring it up through center. Nice and slow. We haven't come up off the mat since we did those deeper hip stretches. So take a moment to check in with the body. Start moving towards a quadruped position, maybe a downward facing dog if that's calling to you. And after doing all that stretching, we want to just allow some movement to happen. Kind of let the body do what it wants to do. I always love rolling movements. You can do some longer spinal movements, top to bottom. If you are just beginning your day, if it's morning time or early afternoon or something, and you did these deep stretches, make sure that you're not doing anything too intense for the rest of the day. This is a great thing to do at the end of your day, so you can just rest and go to bed. But if you're doing these deeper, more intentional stretches and then going into a workout or for a jog or something, in my experience, that's just always injured myself. I've usually injured myself, or it's just created some pain that I didn't want to deal with. So because we've done a lot of opening and expanding, just kind of need to let the muscles rest and recover. Don't go straight into especially lifting or something crazy. It, in my experience, has always ended in not great feelings. So I'm not saying that's going to be the case for you, but for me, for sure, it's never been a good combo. So I usually save these classes for the end of the week, the end of the day, and then I just use it as my recovery, and I continue on the rest of my day, relaxing and recovering. So I hope you enjoyed that. Incorporate any of those stretches regularly. I feel super calm and relaxed now, so I'm going to just take a few minutes of Shavasana on my own. I hope you have time for a Shavasana as well to let the body rest and recover and reset. I'll see you next time on the House of Chi. Thanks for joining.